I've got one quite long question, which I'd quite like a reaction from each of you to give. And it's this, which is what we've seen this morning, I think, are a series of non-conventional, non-traditional medical buildings. I mean, they're for people who are not, on the whole, treated in the big general hospitals. So they're people at the end of life. They're people like veterans. They're people who have, or addicts, recovering addicts, people who have very specific needs. And I wonder if this is not evidence of a trend in healthcare in general to become more fragmented and need more specialist institutions with specialist staff and offering specialist support facilities, on the one hand. And the second part to the question is, given this level of expertise in particular aspects of healthcare, how can that feed back into buildings for general healthcare use? So if I could ask, because I think, Jan, your project, in a sense, was integrating a series of quite specialist
Yes.
functions and needs, and I wonder if you could start with a quick comment.
So I think indeed, as you said, this was a more of a general hospital, but by actually adding a different dimension to it, which is teaching. I think creating this hybridization, of course, also helps defragmenting healthcare, and I think that's hopefully enriches it and makes the care better, and at the same time also helps teach the students why they study medicine in the first place to begin with.
Sure. And Anthony, I mean, you're representing one of the biggest architects in the healthcare field. How do you see this trend in specialization versus integration of different functions?
Yeah, you mentioned, are we seeing kind of cultural changes? Are we seeing trends? And we are. We believe that our spaces not only can heal but should heal, right? That the spaces we create are part of the wellness journey. So our role as designers is to really understand not only the volume and the materiality, light, shadow, everything we create in that space is part of their healing journey. So I think a lot of the staff we engage, maybe they can't verbalize it or actually understand what it is, but they can tell, when they're in a space that they feel better, right? So again, I think it's our responsibility, without sacrificing operations, obviously, to really understand who's using our spaces. And I think that's a dramatic change. I think, you look at a generation before and you went into a space that was too nice, you felt you were paying too much for healthcare.
Yeah.
And what we found is that the actual spaces were an impediment to well-being, right? So now people are demanding more. The family, the visitors, everybody that's engaged in that patient's journey is living in that space, is going through a recovery, in a sense, healing in a way. So I think the kind of generalist approach to what makes great architecture always should be paired with a specialist. What does this building, this space, particularly healthcare, need on the operational sense? Both of our projects, you saw us engage the users in an authentic way.
Yeah.
For the veterans feeling disenfranchised, forgotten about. They've sacrificed for a country or people that don't actually understand or appreciate what they've done, and feeling just a sense of honor is the first stage in overcoming the emotional, the kind of brain health impact.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm with you. What you're seeing in all of these projects is we need to celebrate life and all aspects of life, and we have an opportunity and responsibility to do that.
I think, thinking about veterans in particular, the whole of the Paralympic movement came out of the treatment of veterans in Britain from the Second World War who were disabled. They had
Correct.
spinal injuries, and ironically, the doctor who pioneered that was German.
Right.
He was Jewish. He was an immigrant. But I think what you say also echoes with my own personal experience of spending 4 months in hospital quite recently, and the what you get from as it were, the non-medical aspect of the building and the people and the whatever else is involved is so enormous, particularly as you begin to recover. I mean, I was in a coma for a month, and when I woke up, I didn't know where I was. I couldn't speak, I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe without aid, I couldn't eat. And I just needed to be sort of reintroduced to the world, really.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? That's a specialist thing. And I think that moves on really to Maria, that you're, making people feel they are still part of the world, even though they may not have long in it.
I truly believe that healthcare architecture is toward in curing and not caring. So when we're born, we know we're gonna die, and I'm kind of suspicious because my dad is a doctor. So I've seen him work in healthcare facilities without seeing daylight 24/7. So. And for me, healthcare architecture is not about just the ill people, but about whoever works there. And if architecture makes people feel, we're all the same. No, I feel, you feel, everyone feels, so they can connect in that same moment. For example, when you were in the hospital, if there was a place or a garden where you could put your hands in the water and feel the smell of an apple or something, you would feel alive. And basically, for me, that's what has urgently to come back to architecture, to make people feel alive. That's all. Not about nice buildings or whatever, because on the end of the day, that's what makes us human. No?
Yeah.
To feel alive.
I think that's absolutely important. And I think, you've got, in your project, you've got the wonderful environment of the Azores, which I think, would be a great place to recover or be ill in. I mean, all I had was a partial view out of the window to a street, and I didn't know what street it was, but I could see the London buses going up and down it, and that was my connection to life.
And can you imagine working there for 20 years?
Yeah.
Even though you're not ill, you become ill.
You would,
and
yes.
I think healthcare now is about taking pills, and architecture is too busy not thinking about it.
Yeah. Good. Julia, would you like to add a comment?
Take the mic from you. Does that work? Okay. For us, we've been seeing healthcare get more and more specialized for some time. I think we're, as a society, we're getting really good at pinpointing the problem and treating it. But I think there's another aspect to that as well, and that's what Maria was pointing out of how do you feel, and that the fact that someone is feeling something actually matters in the healthcare journey. And I just so appreciate all these projects that are up here represented, and each of these projects was talking about that. How does that feel to you? And trying to meet the people who are in these buildings in the space that they are emotionally.
Okay. Yeah.
And I believe that it's uncomfortable, not to feel ill and that people are dying. And I think that we as architects and the society has to stop wanting to hide that. Because then we have these enormous buildings that we don't know what to do with them, and like a warehouse of
exactly,
ill
they
people.
become ghettos. And ghettos for
Ghettos
dying
of
people.
something you have to hide.
Yeah. No, well, that's good. Diogo, would you like to add a comment? Okay.
I very much agree. So,
Yeah, as mentioned, I think as we're specializing in these buildings, something like the detox facility, it requires that kind of special attention that these like women and children deserve. It's not just like doctors passing by, here's the medicine. I think as we focus more on what the client needs, the architecture should respond to that. And I think all these projects have done a pretty good job of asking that question and trying to address the problem.
Sure. Anthony, did you want to make another comment?
Yeah, no, for me, it's all this feeling is, like you said, the buildings have lost their soul, right? Their connection to the people. So, yeah, it's,
People are losing their soul.
Yes, right, because we've kind of become, we've made architecture a commodity as opposed to part of a living ecosystem, right? So, like I said, I've done a ton of stakeholder engagement, but just connect to these veterans, and they're weeping because somebody's actually asking them what they want, in their spaces. And to me, that's a failure of this industry. Like, we've let it happen. So what I love about all 4 of these projects is, yes, architecture can heal. Yes, architecture should and allow people to feel and connect and bring the soul back into life.
I don't know if do you know this healthy mind glasses?
Yes.
Okay. For me, that's the end of architecture. If you design a warehouse, a climate warehouse, and you put all these ill people with healthy mind glasses, we all stop feeling, AI gets in, and we're done. We're not here doing anything. Well, I rather feel the smell of the Azores and the heat of Portugal and the taste of port wine. So I like being an architect, and I think we all have to do something about that urgently.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good point, because we have to draw this to an end. But I just want to float a point which I think is quite controversial, which is about the funding model. And you know, in the UK, we have the National Health Service, which in theory provides all your healthcare needs, so-called free at the point of delivery, paid for through general taxation. And in one way, I'm very grateful to it. It meant that I got first-rate medical treatment, saved my life, basically. But on the other hand, what it did was to encourage this impersonality of design, because what it did was to separate the goal of the architecture from being patient and relation, family-centered, to being medical process-centered. And the epitome of that was a man called Richard Llewellyn Davis, who became the professor of architecture at the Bartlett, who did the most sophisticated research into daylight in hospitals and journey times from moving patients from wards to operating theatres. And the result was the most appalling soulless buildings that are now making more health problems than they're solving. And I think, here I don't claim to understand the funding of healthcare in the United States, but I do know that the whole thing about Obamacare is one of the controversial issues behind the government shutdown. So, we don't have it right in any direction, it seems to me, at the moment. And maybe that's something that we could have a much longer debate on, but I'm afraid we don't have time now. But thank you very much, and can we thank our speakers?